So I'm making this video because there's a lot of new people on my channel who might not know a lot about this car. There's also people who want to know more about this car. So figured I'll make a quick little video about it, and yeah. So forgive me if I sound a little bit rushed. It's going to rain in an hour and it will not stop raining for the next 4 days. AKA I need to film this now or never, so we're gonna get into it. So starting with the wheels and tires, I actually just got brand new sets, so it's really nice having that that brand new feeling. But I got Storm S1s, and these are in their gray color, which I think looks amazing. And then for tires, I have Falken RT660s. These are in a 225 width, which is actually pretty nice for Miatas because I don't really have to roll it, which is great on NBs. You actually have a lot more fender clearance than NA Miatas, so that's a huge plus. So they fit right up, didn't really rub at all, and yeah, I didn't roll, so pretty solid. As far as how the tires are gonna hold up on track, I have no idea. I've never driven on them, so we'll see in about a month for my first track day. And yeah, I've heard great things about them, so they should be pretty solid. So while we're over here, I have stock brake calipers for this Miata. It would be great to have a big brake kit, but budget. So stock calipers, I have upgraded lines, upgraded fluid, pretty new-ish rotors. Not really, they're like a year, 2 years old, I think. The pads right now are StopTech Sports. It's their, I think, the 309s. Those are my street pad setup, and they're great. Pretty decent stopping power, and they're very quiet. For brake pads on track, I have G-Lock R10s that I run up front. I actually keep these StopTechs in for the rear. Because of the brake bias for Miatas, there's basically all of the emphasis up front. So the rears actually don't really overheat that quickly. They can actually just run StopTechs for, I mean, really the entire session, and they're fine. But for fronts, I do upgrade them for R10 G-Locks every single track day. So I used to have a little front lip. I actually took it off because it was really annoying to get on a trailer. Also, I painted it and it didn't really look that great. I didn't like how the red blended in with red, so going lipless. So in terms of the rear of the car, it's very, very stock. Not much has changed. The main thing that you might notice is the exhaust. A very, very loud car, and it sounds really, really good. So for the exhaust, it's a 2.5 inch straight through all the way. It has one resonator right in the middle, which helps a little bit with the drone. I am going to upgrade the muffler eventually because right now it is super droney, being essentially a straight pipe. And yeah, it's a little bit on my nerves. So that might be something that changes, we'll see. But for now, it sounds absolutely amazing and makes a lot of people really happy. As for the interior, it's also pretty stock. I still have both of the stock seats, stock steering wheel. Now, I would love to swap these seats out and maybe the steering wheel as well. If I end up keeping this car for a long time, AKA like more than 1 year, I'm going to swap in probably some Sparco Sprints or Corbo DFX that I'm also looking at. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure yet because I also really like having stock seat belts and the stock airbag. That's pretty nice. I've got a cheap Bluetooth head unit, super easy, super cheap, it works. I also have a Miataroadster tall and angled kit. This is a great little addition, and not everybody likes it because it is very tall and a lot of people are kind of thrown off by that. But once you get used to it, it's actually super nice because your hands are right next to the shifter at like all times. So there's very little distance that you have to travel. So for track driving, it's kind of nice that way. Got a Skunk 2 shift knob. Great little knob. I don't know, it works, it's fine. When it's summertime, it does burn your hand, but that's okay. For monitoring, we have a AEM AFR gauge. This is nice little, you know, kind of stealthy little glove box mod. Pretty cool that way. So, you know, when you don't want to look at it, just put it up like that. So the sway bars are stock currently. There's a lot of like debate on which ones are best for Miatas. Some people only swap the fronts and you know, upgrade them that way, and apparently that works. I don't know. So I'm going to do some more research because that's something that's cheap and I think will make a pretty big difference, so might give that a shot. All right, I'm going to go handheld for just a second. So inside the glove box, it's really cool. We have a switch. Now this switch, that switch is a boost switch. So I have a high and a low map. The high map This car makes about 240 wheel horsepower. Low map is about 200. I use the low map mainly for track. That's the main thing because of heat. Miatas are pretty hard to cool. By nature, the engine bay is pretty tight. And you know, when you turbocharge a car that's not meant to be turbocharged, it tends to happen. Also, if you get bad gas, that's kind of another nice little addition, right? You can just go into a low power mode and you won't, you know, sacrifice anything because your engine's not that high strung. So that's another little pro. Now here is where a lot of the uniqueness in my car comes in. I say uniqueness, it's actually not that unique. It's pretty cookie cutter. So going handheld one more time. All right, a lot of stuff to cover. So we're just gonna start from the front and work our way to the rear. So up front, we have a CSF aluminum radiator. It's pretty nice. Fits great, actually. It was a little tough to, had to trim the fans a little bit here, but I went over that in my Turbo Miata build series, so definitely check that out. I have a nice little foam addition. Got it from Home Depot, super cheap. It helps to kind of cut off some of the air that is going into the radiator. Helps to kind of channel it directly into the rad instead of just, you know, spilling out the top. And obviously the intercooler right up front. This is a Flyin Miata intercooler. Fits pretty well. Had to trim a lot of stuff to get it to fit, but now it's in there and looks pretty good. All right, so moving down the left side of the engine bay, we have a catch can right here. I got this from Track Dog Racing. I'm pretty sure it's a very generic kit, but it works great, and this car barely uses, like, barely has any blow-by, I should say. And that's obviously routed right into the intake manifold and then the PCV system on the crankcase. And it's a little bit, I don't know, sketching me out sometimes because it wiggles around, but hasn't fallen out yet. But yeah, this is a great catch can and does its job. Now you might notice a lot of open space. That's because I actually deleted the washer fluid reservoir. If we go to this side of the engine, it's right here. Now this is actually not stock. This is from a Suzuki Cappuccino, which is a little tiny Suzuki. It's a just hilarious car, but it actually fits in really, really well. I have it zip tied, and I think I'm using a bolt on the other side. Super easy mod and allows you to basically move this behind the firewall. So it's nice and out of the way. And what that allows you to do is clear up a whole bunch of room where I mounted that catch can. Now, moving along to the center of the engine, there's one critical piece of the equation. So this is a Garrett GT 2560R. This is essentially the Flyin Miata standard turbo, and for good reason. It is a fantastic turbo. It spools quick. It has really good power delivery. And I mean, this setup makes peak horsepower right at redline, right at the top, which I love. People have driven this car and they kind of say that it feels like a K series in that way because peak power is just so up top and you have to rev it out. So that's really fantastic. Plus, this turbo can support, like, you know, basically 300 wheel horsepower. So, you know, sky's the limit. Obviously the block or the transmission is going to explode before the turbo goes. So that's pretty solid. But other than that, really, it's a lot of just Flyin Miata, just standard stuff. Obviously their intake here, their airbox, which is super nice. I love the way that looks. All of the Flyin Miata intercooler piping is nice and soft, which really makes it easy to fit in tight places. The bottom of the turbo has the oil feed and oil drain, and that's kind of a pain. So having these soft lines provided from Flyin Miata all over the place, super nice. Same with the water coolant as well. I also forgot to mention the coilovers. They are Bilsteins, and they are essentially just a Bilstein shock with lowering springs on them. They ride okay. They're pretty decent. As far as like motorsports, they're not great. I mean, you know, obviously compared to like Zetas or Olin's, like there's a lot to be desired. But for a cheap budget setup on the street, it's actually really solid. If this was like a car that I was gonna keep for, you know, 3 more years, 4 more years, yeah, I'd probably upgrade to Zetas because they're just amazing. But for now, these work great and they're a nice budget option. So for my clutch setup, I'm running a Flyin Miata Stage 1 clutch kit. It comes with a flywheel, which obviously makes it a little bit lighter and it revs a little bit easier. So that's really great. Hasn't slipped once and it's really solid. To help out with cooling mods, I have an oil cooler on the bottom of the car. This really is a necessity in my opinion for any Turbo Miata. It'll ensure that if it's a really hot day, you can obviously daily drive the car perfectly fine, but once you're on track, overheating is a big issue for turbo cars, and that oil cooler on the bottom really helps to cool it down. My roll bar, which is a very, very important necessity for any Miata ever. Please, if you own a Miata, get a roll bar. Please don't get like decapitated, all right? This is a Hard Dog M2 Sport, and this was one of the first mods that I did to this car, and for good reason. It's a big safety upgrade. You roll over, your head won't turn into a, I don't know, a squash. But fitment was pretty decent. It was a pain to install for sure, but once it's in, it's in. So pretty solid, pretty happy with it. So there's a couple small things that honestly I can't really show in video right now because they're kind of stuffed away. So one of them is the ECU. For the ECU, I'm running a Mega Squirt. It's MS3 Pro, and it's a pretty solid ECU. It's very cheap, and it does a good job of just physically running this car. But gotta be honest, it leaves some, you know, a lot to be desired when it comes to AC and startup. It's very, very slow to react to things, and partially that's because it's like basically it has the power of like a Game Boy, like the Game Boy Advance. Not even the Advance, just like the normal Game Boy. So it's very, very slow to react to any changes, and it definitely, like Haltech and all those guys, they really have their stuff down. But yeah, this is a super old ECU. But for a Miata, it works great, and you know, honestly, I have AC. I got headlights, so all the accessories work. It's just a matter of like, yeah, it's not, you know, the smoothest thing in the world, but is what it is. So mated to that MS3 is an electronic boost controller. That's what I use, obviously, to control the boost. I used to have a manual boost controller, and that was great as a little temporary measure. There's a whole little video series about you know, how much power I gained with going from wastegate to manual boost controller to electronic. So check those out. Huge difference once you have an electronic boost controller. You can also taper boost, so you can have it come on really high up top, but you know, down low at 2000 RPM, yeah, you don't really want to have a lot of boost requests. Other small little mini things that I should mention, has a DW 200 fuel pump, Deutschwerks 200, works fine. I also have Flowforce 640cc injectors. They work great. Haven't hit my limit yet, so probably never will. But yeah, those are most of the main mods. So it's honestly a pretty simple build, and it's great because it's just been completely reliable the entire time. You know, I've owned this car for 4 years. I've done basic maintenance and obviously modified it. It is unbelievable how reliable it's been. Nothing is broken. Literally nothing is broken in 4 years since I bought it. It's really, it goes to show how old Japanese cars, mainly Miatas, they're just so freaking reliable. And I can't say that about my daily driver VW, which I keep, it's like an abusive relationship. I keep getting back into VWs, so I'm for sure gonna stop that eventually. Anyway, this was a very short video. I just really wanted to kind of get something out there. I'm trying to upload every single Sunday on a weekly basis, and it's tough because right now in Michigan, it's still basically winter. It snowed 2 days ago, and it's gonna be raining for the next 4, so I had to film something. That explains this. Yeah, we'll see if I can do every Sunday. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions. Seriously, I'll answer them on this video because this is obviously very informational. So just put them down below, and yeah, see ya.